Okay, again, good to see every one of you. We begin the next section of studies. If we go all the way back to the beginning of our course, remember when we talked about what we're going to study, I said that in the spring semester or in the first semester we study Introduction to Financial Management and Financial Statements. We refreshed the terminology. Now we are ready to study the second block for the second semester, which is Analyzing Financial Performance. Let's translate this. What is analyzing financial performance? How would you? Анализ финансового состояния, вот, ну или финансовой результативности фирмы. Вот это наш. This is our plan for this semester. So, what are we going to do? Now we know the four financial statements. Balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement, and statement of changes in equity. So, financial analysis is often based on analyzing these financial statements. Okay? So, what should we begin? How should we begin now? Well, first of all, let me move a little bit our notes to this side. Yeah, like this. And let's talk. Let's begin. So we will say it. Analyzing financial performance. Analyzing financial performance. So, if we, by the way, let me see if I have it here. If we go to our textbook, and we drop down all the way to the section number 2, which is still down. Okay, yeah, here it is. So, section number 2, Analyzing Financial Performance. We see that this section consists of the following chapters. It begins by discussion of return on equity, after which, let me see if it downloads. No, the end. No, sometimes it just has to yes, right now. So then it goes to liquidity. I will discuss it. Okay, I will just show you in the notes. Okay, so in this block we will study. In fact, I'm going to do it this way. We will try to understand the following concepts. We will talk about financial ratios. How would you translate financial ratio? Финансовые коэффициенты, правильно. So we'll talk about the concept of financial ratios, and we will talk about the 5 groups of financial ratios. It will be under the topic of ratio analysis. Ratio analysis. Okay, and in the end we will also talk about some additional concepts in analysis, some additional concepts. Okay, so this is our plan for the whole semester. Well, today we will talk about some basics. Let's talk about what financial ratio is. You already know the translation, it's финансовый коэффициент. But to give a visual definition, I usually tell students this, that financial ratio is a relationship between two financial indicators. So if I put here financial indicator 1 and relate it to financial indicator 2, then I get a financial ratio. The word ratio, помимо того, что это коэффициент, еще означает как бы дробь. Знаете, как по-английски дробь, кстати? Помните, мы математику чуть... Вы проходили же с вами что-то? А, мы не проходили еще. О, это в этом семестре мы будем проходить с вами математику финансовую. Я вам накидаю. I will give you financial mathematics terminology. It will be a special study. Но в английском как бы ratio это значит что-то поделить на что-то. И в математике это мы называем дробь. И еще это называется как, давайте так, fraction. Это дробь. Fraction. It is something divided by something. Fraction. Okay. So now, when you take one financial indicator and divide it by another financial indicator, if, for example, the financial indicator 1 is much bigger than the financial indicator 2, so we have the top, which is much bigger than the bottom, and we will have the numbers which will be more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we will have kind of big numbers. In this case, these financial ratios will be called multiples. Multiples. То есть, это показатели, которые it's 1, 2, 3, 10, so big numbers. Okay? So these indicators, these financial ratios will be multiples. If financial indicator 1 is less than financial indicator 2, then we will call it percentage ratios. Percentage ratios. So it's how you express it. You either express it in multiples, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 100, or it's a percentage, 20%, 30%, 50%, because it's easier to present. So if it's, for example, 0, 0, 5, instead of trying to use the multiples to express it, now we will go to 5%. Okay? It is for convenience. Now, financial analysis, or analyzing financial performance, I use this analogy. Well, let me drop down a little this text. I want to say something here. Financial analysis. Financial analysis. It's like, oh, maybe I can draw a picture here. To me, it looks something like this. What is it? Stethoscope. So you can say it's like you go to the therapist. You go to the doctor who checks your health. Okay? So it's therapist. So a financial manager who starts doing the financial analysis, he is a therapist who checks firm's health. Okay? So you check the pulse, you check the ears, you check the eyes, you check the mouth, you check the skin, you check everything. Okay? And so this is the good analogy. So when you check the health, after checking the health, you can do a more detailed study. You can say, oh, you have problems with your eyes, you need to go to the eye doctor. Oh, you have problem with your kidneys, you need to go to the kidney doctor. Kidneys, do you know the word kidney? What is kidney? Kidneys, it's your почки. Okay, kidneys. Oh, you have problems with your heart. You need to go to the cardiologist, right? So, but we are studying like a therapist approach. We study like overall, but then if you want to study in detail, you go in a more detail, okay? So that's what financial analysis is about. It's doctor check, okay? So, and there are 5 basic groups of doctor check that we will study. So I'll move this a little down again, and let's write this down. So we will study 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we will study, the first one is liquidity. Okay? Liquidity. We will study liquidity. In Russian, liquidity, you probably know this. Ликвидность. Ликвидность, платежеспособность. Okay? The second group of ratios is called asset management ratios. Asset management ratios. Okay? So the asset management ratios, here we will look all the assets that the company has. Remember we talked about the current assets, non-current assets. We talked about fixed assets, intangible assets, marketable securities, inventories, cash, settlement account, and blah blah blah. Accounts receivable, by the way, is also. So in analysis you see how well you use these assets in your company. So it's how well you use your body, what you have. Okay? Asset management ratios. Third, debt ratios. These are liquidity ratios, by the way, I'll put here. Liquidity ratios, asset management ratios, debt ratios. Daria, how would you translate debt ratios? Коэффициенты долга, так скажем, да? Ну, или это еще в русском говорят, когда мы оцениваем финансовую стабильность. Коэффициенты долга и это коэффициенты финансовой устойчивости. Кстати, я могу вам их здесь сокращенно написать на коэффициенты ликвидности. Это, пусть будет коэффициенты ликвидности. Asset Management Ratios. У нас в русском они называются это анализ деловой активности или коэффициенты деловой активности. Вот. Debt Ratios – это коэффициенты финансовой устойчивости. And there are 2 more groups. Number 4, profitability ratios. Profitability ratios – это коэффициенты рентабельности. Коэффициенты рентабельности. And finally, market value ratios. Market value ratios – это коэффициенты рыночной стоимости. Не крупно-рогатый склад, Коэффициенты рыночной стоимости. Okay, so this is what we will slowly study throughout the semester. Now, well, in the additional concepts, I think we will talk about horizontal and vertical. And vertical analysis. Horizontal and vertical analysis. And so this will help us complete the study of the spring semester and study the terminology. Profitability ratios, коэффициенты рентабельности. Коэффициенты прибыльности, рентабельности. Ну, рентабельность. So this is our plan. But we will begin by chapter 1 and look at the most interesting. By the way, yes, here they are. Look. First of all, here we find that a financial ratio is a relationship between two financial indicators. Here we have the word multiples. Yes, see the multiples in the gray. And the other ones are percentage statements. Also, the financial ratios: liquidity, asset management, debt ratios, profitability, and market value ratios. So it's all in the book. Okay? And the first one we will talk about is calculating return on equity, because this is the most popular ratio in financial analysis. So let's talk about this. In fact, I will say, okay, calculating return on equity. Return on equity. By the way, the return on equity is shortened for ROE. Слышали когда-нибудь такое? ROE. Аббревиатура. ROE. But before we do so, I want to briefly show you several pictures. All these ratios are based on financial statements. So, for this we will need a balance sheet again. Balance sheet. We will need the income statement. We will need number 3, the cash flow statement. And we will need number 4, statement of changes in equity. I usually, when I think about it, I usually picture in my head the following picture. So balance sheet looks like this. So this is the balance sheet. Here we have assets, here we have equity and liabilities. Well, in fact, I can do it like this. Non-current assets, current assets, equity and liabilities. This is the balance sheet. When I think about the income statement, usually the picture is somewhat like this. So we have sales, and then we go down and we have gross profit, operating profit, earnings before taxes, and net profit. So this is the structure of the income statement. Well, cash flow statement usually is pictured into three sections. Operating activities, investing activities, financing activities. Okay? And statement of changes in equity, it's more like, it's like a matrix. Here we have the equity, different types of equity lines. And here we have things that can change equity. Statement of changes in equity, it's how the equity may change. So it's like in the intersections we see how it influences this change. By the way, here it is. Look, this is this matrix when we studied it. See, at the top we have the types of equity. To the right we have the beginning balance and items that change equity. So this is the picture of each of the balance sheets. So technically, whenever you need to calculate a ratio, you need to ask yourself a question. So for example, return on equity. You picture a question in your head. So you think. That's you thinking. Looks like you exactly, right? So how do we calculate this? Usually for each ratio there is a financial indicator 1 divided by financial indicator 2. In this case, these financial indicators will be net profit divided by equity. And so whenever you see these financial indicators, you start thinking, from which financial statements I can find this indicator. Okay? And so then you go in your head to this picture. Okay, you think, okay, net profit. Where is net profit hiding? And you say, it's hiding here. That's in the income statement. Right? And then you say, oh, and where is equity hiding? And you say, equity is hiding where? In the balance sheet. Here it is. Right? And so then you pull the data from the income statement, you pull the data from balance sheet, you put it in the right relationship, you calculate the ratio, and as soon as you do the math, then you start thinking, okay, what does that mean? What is the logic of this ratio? Because each ratio has some, I should say, common sense logic. Translate, please. Common sense logic. Common sense? Huh?
Common sense – это шрифт.
Common sense. О, классно. Это sans-serif. Common sense – это здравый смысл. Здравый смысл. So, common sense logic, there should be some, здравая логика, которая объясняет, почему мы берем эти цифры, мы их соотносим, мы получаем какой-то результат, что же он значит. Простой пример приведу вот здравого смысла. Вот если вы пойдете домой, вот, Эвелина, сколько вам до дома идти отсюда? Далеко?
Минут 15.
Минут 15. А сколько километров? Вот. Смотрите, тогда вопрос. Вот мы возьмем Эвелину, и мы знаем, что, допустим, у нее до дома пусть будет 2 километра. Вот. И тут мы узнаем, что она за 15 минут доходит до дома. Если мы возьмем 2 километра и поделим на 15 минут, то что мы получим? Скорость Эвелины, с какой она шла до дома. В данном случае это будет 6 километров в час. Нет, не 6, 8 километров в час. То есть она бежала домой, оказывается. Вот. Потому что 15 минут это четверть часа, правильно? Соответственно, за час бы она пробежала в 4 раза больше, она 8 километров пробежала. Соответственно, здравый смысл нам говорит, это скорость. А скорость это как быстро Эвелина движется. Да? Так вот, в финансах также вы берете показатели, вы их соотносите, и потом вы думаете, и что это? Это скорость, или это путь, или это ну, аналогично вот каким-то физическим процессам или, ну, вот здесь получается финансовые идеи, нужно их обобщать. Понятно? So that's the idea. But so you always think about, okay, where do I take it from? How do I put it in a relationship? And then what does it mean? And if you understand, the common sense tells you, that's what it means. So I feel happy because you are getting it. You understand the idea of financial analysis. Okay? Well, I'm glad you understand this part. And let's talk about what is return on equity. Huh? Yes, question, please, Елена. You want a break? Окей. А давайте без перерыва и просто пораньше закончим и уходить. Давайте. We have still... давайте, let's maximum 30 minutes, maybe even less, and we will go. Okay? So, what is return on equity? Let me put this phrase down. The return on equity is the measure. Вот слово, которое у нас уже было, теперь оно у нас постоянно всплывает. Measure. Мера, измерение. Measure of how efficient the company is at generating profits. At generating profits. Can you translate this, please? Measure of how efficient the company is at generating profits.
Измерение, насколько эффективна компания
Можно сказать? В генерировании прибыли, да? Можно использовать такое. Ну, то есть или в том, что она прибыль получает, в получении прибыли, да? Вот. То есть, получается, смотрите, то есть это мера того, насколько эффективна компания в получении прибыли. Ну, естественно, здравый смысл он подсказывает, как все компании хотят быть прибыльными, получать побольше прибыли. Вот. Соответственно, эффективность получения прибыли, ну, это как она много прибыли, как быстро прибыль получает, там, как эта прибыль соотносится, допустим, ну, условно говоря, потратили 1000, заработали 500. Мы же можем сказать, это более эффективно, чем если бы мы потратили, допустим, 1000, а заработали 200. Да, то есть тут уже, чувствуете, здравый смысл начинает подключаться. Поэтому, условно говоря, если я возьму прибыль и поделю ее на то, что я потратил, ну там 500 на 1000, я получу, какую долю моя прибыль составляет в том, что я потратил. Вот, уже можно делать какие-то выводы абстрактные. Вот. So, measure of how efficient the company is at generating profits. Now, here's an interesting picture. I want you to see, I guess. Let me see if I have it anywhere here. Maybe it was here. Remember, in the beginning of our course, there was a discussion, where was it? Hey, I thought it was, yeah, here. We talked about the financial manager functions, and we talked about how you come up with idea, and then you start developing your business in order to get your profits. So, you have the idea, then you need to find capital for your idea, which is equity, which is your capital, or liabilities, which is borrowed capital. And then you have to use this capital to buy all the assets you need for production. Then you start your production, raw materials, work in progress, and finally finished goods. Then you sell your products and you generate cash, and then you generate profits from your sales. Okay? So now let's summarize it in the following picture. Summarize it in the following picture back here. So there was this so there is this brilliant idea, okay, but we will not focus on that. We need to use in our example the following important information. So we first have to come up with equity for business. So we generate equity, and then we invest this equity into companies. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, I'll use this color. So we make assets. Okay. Then these assets used in production to generate finished goods and finally sales. Okay. So this is our sales. And then from sales we get our let's say profits. So I pretty much summarized that picture, right? So find the capital, invest it in the assets, produce goods and sell it, generate sales, make profits. Okay? So we have the following stages here. So capital acquiring, assets, investment in assets, production and sales, and profits. So return on equity, on the one hand we looked at it and we said this is net profit divided by equity. So net profit divided by equity. If I do it a little bit in a different way, I can write down this way. So we take equity, which was there, and net profits were here. Net profit. Oops. So again, here's equity, here's profits. So we pretty much try to compare with each other the beginning and the end of the whole business. Okay, so profits divided by equity. So that looks like, okay, I'm the investor, I want to invest something and I want to get out of it. So I want to compare what I get with what I invested. Is that common sense logic? Yes, you understand it? So pretty much the return on equity is the popular ratio because it's a common sense ratio. You want to know how much you're going to get from what you invest. And so return on equity shows you take the profits, you divide it by equity, and you get the percentage you get in return for your investment. What is the analogy of this right now in a day-to-day life? Usually it's when you put money in the bank on deposit, right? So what is the interest rate right now in the banks? 20%. Yeah, you can get something, it's like, so analogy is bank deposit. Bank deposit. For example, you invest a certain amount of money, then it stays there for some time, and you get the money back, plus interest. So in the interest will be, well, 17 to 20% right now. This is what you may get at present. So if you want to invest in business, you probably think, okay, if I invest in business, if I get more than 20%, for example, 30, 40%, 50%, then it's better than to put it in a bank. Okay? If I get less than 20%, well, maybe, why should I worry? Maybe I'll just put it in the bank, right? So that's how we start thinking. Now, the first component in the return on equity is profit margin. Three components. Three components of return on equity. Three components of return on equity. The first one is profit margin. The second is called asset turnover. And the third one is called financial leverage. Okay, profit margin, asset turnover, and financial leverage. So the profit margin component, it's also a ratio which is calculated by dividing net profit by sales. Net profit divided by sales. Okay, I'll write here net profit. Net profit. But then we will use the abbreviation. Net profit will be NP, sales will be S. Okay? So, where do we find net profit? We find it in the income statement. Where do we find sales? We find them in the sales statement. We'll do it a little later. Now, asset turnover is another ratio that is calculated by dividing sales by assets. Or S divided by, well, total assets. I'll write down total assets, total assets. And financial leverage is another ratio that is calculated by dividing total assets. Hold on. Total assets divided by equity, or TA divided by E. Total assets divided by equity. So these three components altogether are called the components of return on equity. So now I need to do something for us so that we can start playing with numbers. First of all, we need to go back to our balance sheet, and we will need the numbers for the balance sheet so that we can do some calculations. So I'm going to take the balance sheet from here, from our notes. I will copy it, and so that I don't have to run back and forth up and down, I will take it here and I will make a copy of it for us, for example, somewhere here. Okay, let's paste it. Paste. let's see, yes. So now we have the balance sheet, and I will give you the numbers for the balance sheet that we will use for our purposes. Okay, so let's work with the numbers. Fixed assets. Let's have the fixed assets at the level of 300. 300 for fixed assets. Intangible assets will be 50. Long-term investments will be 80. And deferred charges will be 20. Okay, now I need your help. If fixed assets is 300, intangible assets 50, long-term investments 80, and deferred charges 20, how much will be the non-current assets? Tell me. Can you tell me how much will be the non-current assets? Close, but not the first number. The big, not 100. 400. So the total will be the 450. Okay? It's 300 plus 50 and then plus another 100. Right? So it's 450. Now let's do the same for the current assets. Inventories are 250. Accounts receivable are 200. Short-term investments are 150. And cash is 50. Tell me how much are the current assets?
650.
Exactly. 650. And what will be the total assets?
1,100.
Exactly. 1,100. So now we have the numbers for the assets part. Now let's switch to the equity and liabilities. Let's say that the common stock is 100. The preferred stock is only 50. Additional capital is 100. And retained earnings are 350. This makes our equity, how much? The total equity will be 600. Good. And finally, let's go to the liabilities. Long-term bank loans will be 150. Long-term bonds and notes and debentures will be 50. Short-term debt will be 150. And accounts payable in all forms and sizes 150. Okay, but here we will have two numbers. Not only just, well, we can do the total, but also long-term liabilities and short-term liabilities. Okay, how much will be the short-term liabilities? The short-term, 300. The long-term will be 200. And all the liabilities will be 500. So total equity plus liabilities will be 1,100. The same.
It's always the same? Or
Yes. By the rule, it should be the same. Or balance sheet is not a balance sheet. Okay? It's always the same. Okay? So now we have these numbers. Also, let's go to income statement. And in the income statement, we already have the numbers. Remember? See? So we will also take the income statement. And use it for our purposes of financial analysis. Okay, so I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so see, we have net sales of 1,000, and then we subtract cost of goods sold 400, get the gross profit of 600, subtract the administrative and selling expenses, get the operating profit of 300, subtract the financial expenses, get the 200 of earnings before taxes, and finally, net profit after taxes, 100. Okay? So now we can go back and do something here. First of all, let's try to calculate our return on equity from this formula. What should I do? Now I need your help. How much is net profit?
I forgot.
You forgot. Does anybody remember how much the net profit? Let's go look. 100. And the next one, next number that we need is what? 100 divided by equity. How much is equity? Anastasia? You can look. Huh? 600. 600, yes. So 600. So 100 divided by 600 gives us 1 divided by 6, or how much is that? Can anyone divide 1 by 6 on the calculator? Because see, it's less than 1, we will use the percentage number.
16%. Oh, no, almost 17.
16 point what?
0.6.
16.6%. Okay? So the return on equity is 16.6%. So under present conditions of Tomsk, is it better to invest in the business or put money on the deposit?
Oh, better put money on deposit.
Yes, because we said that 17 to 20% we can get right now. Okay? But still, see, now we are using our common sense. We're trying to think. So this 16.6% is not just a number. It has a meaning to it. So it means that if I invest 1,000, I will get 16.6% on that 1,000. Okay. Now, with the 3 components, let's find the magic of the 3 components. The first component is called profit margin. Let's calculate the profit margin as well. It's net profit divided by sales. Now I need your help, Yelena. How much is net profit? $100, good. How much are sales? Where should we find sales? In the income statement. So we think, okay, this is from the income statement. Going to the income statement, and net sales are how much? 1,000. Yeah, we can use these net sales. Net sales means it's clean sales. Okay, so it's 1,000. So we put here our 1,000. And that gives us what? 10%. Yeah. 10%, 1/10, or 10%. So 10%. So now let's translate. Profit margin. Это как можно привести?
Чистая маржа.
Чистая маржа или Да, давайте, на самом деле, у нас попроще есть термин, который удобно начинает здравомыслие наше включать. Это рентабельность продаж. Profit margin – это рентабельность продаж. Почему? Потому что мы сравниваем прибыль с нашими продажами. А рентабельность означает прибыльность продаж. То есть прибыльность наших продаж 10%. Что это означает?
Что при вкладывании
Ага.
мы получим 1,10. Мы получим 10 копеек дополнительно.
Да. То есть на каждый рубль, который мы вкладываем, Вот. Мы получаем 10% прибыли, то есть на каждый рубль по 10 копеек. Или на каждую сотню рублей по по 10 рублям. Вот. И вот теперь важный момент. То есть, когда мы встречаем число, нам нужно научиться его объяснять. И вот получается, здесь мы его как объясняем? Что 10%, so for each dollar, $1, не for each, давайте вот так. Each dollar of sales generates 10 cents.
10 cents.
10 cents of profits. То есть каждый доллар продаж генерирует 10 центов прибыли. Вот мы перевели уже в здравый смысле, то есть вот мы сколько получили выручки, вот сколько получится с нее прибыль. Давайте то же самое. Let's do the same with the asset turnover. Asset turnover we take sales divided by total assets. Sales are 1,000, right? We used them before. Total assets. How much are total assets? Yes, exactly. 1,100. So it's 10 by 11. And how much is it going to be? Can you calculate, please? 10 by 11.
Almost 91.
0.91. Or no, 91%.
Yes.
91%.
Yes.
91%. So we see the number, we try to understand. What does it show? We relate sales to total assets. It means that each $1 of total assets generates 91 cents of sales. То есть мы создали материальную базу, условно говоря, на 1000, запустили все это производить продукцию, и за год эта материальная база произвела нам $910 продукции. То есть активы на 1000, выручка на 910. Правильно? Вот. И поэтому можно уже как-то соотносить, насколько эффективно работают наши активы. So finally, financial leverage, its total assets, 1100, and divided by equity. Equity уже помните, сколько было? 600. 600, it's 11 by 6. Вот здесь уже больше единицы, значит будем multiples использовать. 1.183. Yes. 1 point in the period, yes. 183. So here we say that each dollar of equity generates 1.83 dollars of assets. Получается, каждый наш доллар, который мы капитала взяли и вложили в компанию, мы на него собрали $1.83 активов. А потом эти активы сгенерировали нам 91 из 100 выручки, а потом каждые 100% выручки сгенерировали 10% прибыли. Чувствуете, как вот по сути у нас повторяется эта цепочка. Equity to assets, assets to sales, sales to profits. И вот последний чудесный элемент получается вот в чем он выглядит. Смотрите, получается, если эти формулы я подставлю вот сюда, которые у нас были, то смотрите, я их как подставлю. Я их вот здесь запишу, а вы посмотрите. Первый у нас profit margin. Вот сюда я пишу profit margin, сюда я пишу asset turnover, а сюда я пишу financial leverage. И подписываю их формулу. То есть это return on equity складывается из трех компонентов, которые мы перемножаем. Profit margin у нас был какой? And net profit divided by sales. Asset turnover был sales divided by total assets. Financial leverage у нас был какой? Total assets divided by equity. Equity.
Sales на equity.
Что происходит у нас здесь? Total assets сокращается, sales сокращается, и в итоге получается net profit divided by equity, что и есть наш ROE. И вот в этом как бы сама магия, что все эти три компонента, они при перемножении, они как раз дают нам рентабельность собственного капитала, а экономический смысл у них такой, что мы видим поэтапно, как происходит трансформация нашего капитала. То есть сначала equity трансформируется в активы, это финансовый рычаг показывает, с какой эффективностью. Потом активы трансформируются в продажи, это оборачиваемость активов, показывает этот коэффициент. И, наконец, продажи трансформируются в прибыль, это показывает рентабельность продаж. И вот они таким образом дают нам представление о том, то есть если мы видим, что у нас коэффициент хороший, то мы можем посмотреть, за счет чего он хороший. Если он плохой, то мы можем посмотреть, что из этих трех компонентов у нас просело или испортилось за год. И вот таким образом мы начинаем уже с терапии переходить в более узкую специализацию там, врачей, которые занимаются там, кардиологией или почками или еще чем-то. Ну вот такой элемент. Okay, so that's it for today. In the next class, we will continue our studies and maybe we will start studying the liquidity. Okay, so I'll see you next week. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.